So what's up? Let's make our first sourdough starter. And if you've done this before, you can just do it again. It's like a game, I don't know, like Baby Born. My daughter has one, you know, a doll that you have to feed and change every day. Or like, I don't know, a real child, a kitten, a puppy, something you have to take care of. It's the same with sourdough starter. Remember, it's a living organism. Everything that's alive needs certain environmental conditions to survive. Sourdough starter is the same way. It wants to eat. And for it to feel comfortable and warm, so that it can grow and those wild yeasts can multiply, and so that it becomes strong, it needs the right tasty food with a high protein content. That is, a stronger sourdough starter will come from strong flour, right, rather than from higher grade flour. These simple, very logical things need to be gradually understood and kept in mind. And then it will be very, very easy. To start a sourdough starter, you only need flour and water. Just imagine that. It seems like you couldn't come up with anything simpler. We take regular, everyday flour, let's put it that way. Please, when you're starting your very first sourdough and don't have much experience yet, begin with regular wheat flour with a high protein content. I'll say it again, not with whole grain, buckwheat, spelt, rice, or anything like that. All right. You can do those experiments later, once you've really practiced and mastered the basics with regular flour. So, which a scale? I recommend working specifically with a scale. Please get yourself a scale, because of course you could say a spoonful of flour, a spoonful of water, but by weight, you know, and by volume, it's not the same thing. Because rule number 1, when we start the sourdough, the ratio is 1:1. I'll write this on the board for you so that it sticks in your memory photographically, for life, forever. Wherever you are, you'll be able to make sourdough, even somewhere like the Maldives, and bake bread there, just in case they stop feeding you. This is our first day, we mark it like this, 1:1. Water, flour. Nothing complicated. Yes, it's all extremely simple. But use a scale, not just spoon to spoon. And I suggest starting with small amounts, for example, 25 grams. Right here, exactly 25 grams of flour, 25 grams of water. So don't rush, please. Don't do a kilogram to a kilogram, or 100 grams to 100 grams. The starter and 25 grams of room temperature water. Great. Exactly 50 grams. Use either a silicone spatula like this, or some kind of wooden tool. Mix it, stir it, talk to it for strength, for flavor, for life. The consistency will be like thick sour cream. Start working with the starter in small amounts. Later you'll see it might feel a bit wasteful, because when we feed the starter, we'll be discarding part of it. Otherwise, and I've been through this myself, it turns into a fridge full, a whole room, a house full of starter that just takes over the space. And one day you'll feel like it's going to eat you, instead of you making something with it. Because the growth really happens in geometric progressions, and every time we feed it, we discard part of the starter. And there's no need to cry or feel sorry about it. It's nothing to worry about. Or give it to someone else, let them take care of it. That way, the starter will already be active, or you can quickly make something light like pancakes or fritters with it, or just throw it away and forget about it. Okay, let's agree on this right away. I know it might feel painful, but otherwise, in a week, so in 7 days, these 50 grams will turn into 3 kilograms, or even more of the starter. What are you going to do with it then? And you'll still have to keep feeding it. Although, I also know what to do with it. We'll go through it together right now. You can store it in a dried form. Also, be prepared that, when working with sourdough, over time your sink and all your utensils will get a bit sticky, to put it mildly. Because when it starts working, these live yeasts, the strands get really stretchy. So it's not just flour you can wash off your hands, or some shortbread dough, and that's it. No, everything will be stretchy. You need to wash it off with cold water, scrub it clean. Don't put it in the sink or the dishwasher like that, make sure to rinse it off first. Here, look at it like this, do you see the consistency? I'll show you again. It's uniform. What could be simpler? Even kids could mix it like this. By the way, some people later make starters using grape juice, for example, or some other kind of flour, or apple cider or juice. After that, it's all about playing with flavors and textures in the end. But to start with, just water and flour. Your starter should be covered so that nothing can get in there. But it shouldn't be airtight. Air needs to get in. Why? Again, it's always very logical. Because it's a living organism that wants to breathe. It needs oxygen. And the carbon dioxide needs somewhere to escape so it doesn't suffocate itself. Otherwise, it will die, and that's it. At room temperature, that is 20 to 24 degrees, that's the optimal temperature, we leave it for a day. The starter is fed, by the way, it's a very low-maintenance child, just once a day. You can set an alarm on your phone, for example, every day at, 9 in the morning or 8 in the morning, depending on your schedule. Or maybe yours will like to have a good snack at night. And you'll feed it at 9 in the evening. But it's best to do it at the same time every day, whatever works for you. Not for it, for you. Take care of it in a way that's comfortable for you, all right, and just leave it somewhere in plain sight, for example. At first, look, you can actually start in a small jar like this, it's convenient. Then you can transfer it to a bigger one. And it's always recommended to have either a marker to market or a rubber band like this, and at first, when there's very little, you won't really notice any growth or changes. But later on, when it's the third or fourth day and we're activating the starter, this rubber band comes in really handy because you mark the starting level here, and after a day, or after 7 or 8 hours, you can see how much it has grown. Usually, it should double in size. That's a great indicator. It means it's not, going wild or hyperactive, but it's strong and stable, just the way we need it. All right, that's the first day done. Now, on to the second day. Day 2. So, that's how we started it, right? The starter. Next comes the first feeding. I mixed up this starter yesterday. Here's an example, by the way, of how you can do it at home. Just a regular jar from some of your preserves, clean, with a bit of gauze to keep everything tidy, a rubber band, and it just sits there doing its thing. Exactly the same ratio, 25 to 25, that I set up yesterday. Take a look at how the starter looks now. It hasn't grown much, maybe just 2 millimeters or so. Even for me, the rubber band kept slipping down because the level was so low. But, look, I'm smelling it. So far, I don't sense any acidity. That means we still don't have those active wild yeasts yet, or there are very, very few, so you can't really feel it. Did you check? Yeah, it just smells like regular flour. The signs that everything is going well are the small amount of bubbles that we can see around the edge. Some are bigger, some are smaller, right here. That means things have started happening in there. There shouldn't be any bubbles on top yet. The consistency, look, it's still that same sticky dough, just like the one we mixed yesterday. But this one is still uneven, kind of shiny, you see, freshly mixed. Here, the color is already more matte. And it's becoming more uniform. So this homogenization, the combining has started, right? So what we see is a difference not in volume, but in appearance. And the bubbles. The first feeding and all subsequent ones are done in a ratio of 1 to 2 to 2, where 1 is the starter. Let's already call it a starter, even though it's still just potential. Starter. You will need exactly 2 parts of water and 2 parts of flour for this recipe. There are different feeding formulas from various, teachers, bakers. I trust this one. It's been tested. It definitely works, and it's great. You can develop a starter in, say, 7 days, right? Some people say, oh no, only 2 weeks, and only then will the starter be good. According to this formula, and it's been tested more than once, and not just by me, 7 days is enough to get a great result for tartine, ciabatta, focaccia, any kind of bread. After that, your starter will get stronger, even better in some ways. But believe me, a week is more than enough. There's no need to fuss over it or mess around for 2 weeks. So what do we do now? To avoid ending up with huge amounts again, we simply take some and set it aside. For example, here we have 50 grams from yesterday, right? I set aside the extra 25 grams and keep only 25 grams of starter for myself. All right, of course, if you want to make a lot of it, I'm not stopping you from taking all 50 grams. But just imagine, there are already 50 grams of starter here, plus you'll add 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour. That already makes 250 grams. That's a full glass for you. So I really recommend sticking to these small proportions. Or you can put these 25 grams in another jar, right, and grow it in parallel so you can share it with someone, for example. Or sometimes it's just interesting to see which one is more active. Or put them in different corners of your room or apartment, one in the living room and the other in the kitchen. See where the starter feels more comfortable. Oops, come here. All right. That's it. We've weighed out these 25 grams. Let them go with God's blessing. Now what do we have? Let's count. Okay. We have 25 grams of starter. How much water? That's right. 50 grams of water and 50 grams of flour. Let's go. First pour in the water, then add the flour into the same jar. No need to transfer anything, because like I said, otherwise the whole kitchen will end up looking like it's covered in glue. So we pour in 50 milliliters. Check, done. Stir it, stir it. At first, it doesn't really want to mix well. Then, if you add the flour and mix it, and it doesn't turn out super smooth, it's no big deal. Trust me. These wild yeasts, they're so wild that they'll dissolve all those lumps, break them up, and it'll become smooth on its own. Yeah, try to keep the jar clean, because later it'll start sticking to the edges. All right, use this spatula a bit. There you go. Everything will get to the bottom, that's it. Yeah, water wears down stone and dissolves the starter too. Now we've got a smooth consistency. Let's add 50 grams of flour. There we go. All right. Yeah, that's 2 good spoonfuls. Awesome. One summer when I was at my parents' place in the village, I was making a starter, and my mom didn't have a scale. My dad only had some big old ones, you know, the kind with weights. So I just eyeballed it or tried to measure with a simple spoon, and it actually worked, but I didn't really like the final result as much as my initial experiments, especially when I meticulously measured everything precisely, gram by gram, using a proper kitchen scale. Break time equals 0.5s/. That's precisely why I'm warning you. The ultimate results can significantly vary if you choose to work without a reliable scale. We've now mixed everything together thoroughly. All right, so how much do we have here now? 125 grams in total, right. There you go. That's already quite a lot. That's right. This is our first feeding. We mark it so that tomorrow, exactly 24 hours later, we can clearly observe whether it's moving or not. Again, for your initial 3 days or so, please do not expect the starter to rise significantly like this as it takes time. It just needs to increase a little bit by a few millimeters, sometimes half a centimeter in volume. Yes, because the process is just getting started. Don't think that if it hasn't moved at all, it means it's done for, or that nothing will work out. Maybe it's a bit too cold for it, so put it in a warmer place, create those conditions for it. At the initial stage, you can give it a little boost, that is, put it in the oven after you've turned it off, after you've baked something, when there's still a bit of warmth left. Yes, and you put the bread in there, or somewhere near the window, so that direct sunlight doesn't hit it, but the windows though is warm, and you put it in that cozy spot. Or you can come up with anything, even put it next to the cat so it warms it up with its belly, for example. Yeah, and that's it. We keep monitoring the indicators, again, the smell, the bubbles, and the volume. All right. What do we do on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th day? Yeah, you can even mark the 3rd day, or perhaps the 7th day. The 1-2-2 formula always stays the same. 1 part starter, 2 parts water, 2 parts flour. Break time equals 0.5s/. But please, it is crucial that you do not stray from this precise and important ratio. To consistently get a normal and healthy amount of active starter, or at the very most, each and every time, carefully take exactly 50 grams of your established starter. 100 and 100. Yes, your essential starter, your pure water, and your fine flour, those are truly your absolute maximum ingredients. All right, because look, that's already a lot. It'll grow from this. Later, there will be a ton of it. Keep about 250 grams in the jar like this all the time, until it becomes strong and powerful. I'll repeat, don't be afraid to throw some out. It's no big deal. So every day and on the fourth day, you take 50 grams of starter. 100, yes. Fifth, sixth, seventh. If on the seventh day you see that it's not really rising, maybe it just needs one more day, that's all. Or again, maybe it just needs a slightly warmer environment. And with these formulas, I hope it's clear to you. Your photographic memory will kick in, and you'll remember for life how to feed not just a cat, but your sourdough starter too. Honestly, sourdough is convenient pretty much anywhere. My friend, she travels a lot and always takes her sourdough starter with her so she can make healthy pancakes and fritters for her kids in the morning, and always have her own bread. Because she doesn't trust any of those supermarkets, since she knows that in big industry, of course, everything is made with mixes. There's usually some sourdough, some yeast, but for large volumes, low cost, and consistent results, of course, our industry has developed in such a way that there are lots of substitutes, replacements, and convenient tools and ingredients for the manufacturer and production. That's why you can take sourdough with you and prepare it anywhere. For this, my friend takes a small amount of sourdough in a jar, for example, and also measures out small zip bags, 50 grams of flour, for instance. So for about 3 days, so she can feed it. As for feeding, now let's figure out how often we need to do it once we've reached the 7th day. For example, my sourdough is active right now. Yes, this is my previous one, which I grew long before this lesson, before we got to this point. This is the sourdough that you could use to bake bread right now. I took a portion and baked some bread. What should I do with it next? That's the question. So, for example, if you bake bread every day or plan to do so, if you're experimenting, if you have a big family and you eat a lot of bread, then your sourdough should live with you in the kitchen at room temperature. Yes, in this environment where all the living people and little creatures are running around. We leave it here and feed it, again, once a day, every single day. We write often, right? So that we bake bread often, every day. We feed it once every 24 hours. Here's the second option. I baked bread today and tomorrow I'm going on a trip. What should I do with the sourdough? This sourdough, in this activated state, I used it, yes. I close it with a lid so that there's just a little bit of airflow. Well, just a tiny bit. With these lids, you can close it all the way. And I put it in the fridge. I put it in the fridge and start packing my suitcases. In this case, we call it rarely. I will bake rarely. You need to feed it at least once a week, at most every 10 days to keep that interval. All right. We write for 7 days once. You will need to carefully take it out of the fridge, then feed it, and subsequently give it ample time to properly rise. Always remember, after feeding, let's write it here. After feeding, you need to wait 6 to 7 hours. So if you're going to bake or mix something in the morning, take it out of the fridge the night before, feed it, and let it wake up, okay? Because if you just feed it and start baking right away, no, that won't be enough. It simply won't have time. 6 to 7 hours, and here let's write 22, 24 degrees, meaning room temperature. Room tempi, here for 7 days, it's 4 to 6 degrees, right? Here we keep all this in the fridge. Here too, we have room temperature, 22, 24 degrees. And there's one more option. If, well, very rarely, you either got burned out, for example, experimented too much, and want to take a break for now, you can dehydrate the starter, meaning dry it, or you can also freeze it. But it's the same as with regular yeast, you know, especially the fresh kind. You can freeze them, but then quite a significant percentage of them don't survive. Let's say they're not as active. Whereas dehydrated starters and dry yeast feel great after drying, and then it's very easy to reactivate them. How do you dry a starter? It's very simple. Take an active starter, one that's been fed, has risen, is lively and strong, not a passive one that's been sitting in the fridge for a week without food and is all sluggish. We take the active starter and put it on a piece of parchment paper. You can also use a mat, a silicone baking mat. You can even use plastic wrap as well. And try to spread it out in as thin a layer as possible, like this, and leave it again on the windowsill, or somewhere out of the way on a cupboard or on top of a cabinet. So at room temperature, the starter will dry out in about a week. Please don't do this using a dehydrator, you know, trying to dry it quickly in 6 hours or so. No. It also needs time to go through this whole process. And in this state, it will reactivate really well later on. Spread it out in a thin layer, and then, once it's dry, you can store it for months or even years. You can even take it with you when you travel, as long as they don't confiscate it at the border. I'm just kidding. It's such a thin, almost transparent layer. You'll see for yourself when it dries, it'll start to separate from the paper like that. Next, you scrape off this dry mass and either store it as little sheets in some airtight jar, or, actually, even better, you grind it up in a coffee grinder and keep it as a fine, uniform powder. We put it in here. After it dries, I'll show you what to do next. Here I have some dry, already prepared starter, see. Store it either in an airtight jar, again, or in an airtight bag. It doesn't need sunlight, so it should be kept either in a dark container or in a tightly sealed bag, right? And this is what it looks like in these little flakes. But instead just carefully break it up or chop it meticulously by hand. Look, it's so incredibly white, so beautifully pretty, almost appearing truly alive. No, you still need to activate it now, and then that's it, it'll start working. That's almost never for us, feeding, right? I just write dehydration, dehydrating, or freezing. We don't rule out freezing. It's just that I recommend drying more than freezing. But believe me, if it's easier for you, if you don't have time to spread it out, know where to put it, suddenly you have a bunch of insects flying around or cats running everywhere, and you really have nowhere to dry it. Of course, you can put it in a jar, but again, just like when we carefully dry it, we also meticulously freeze the starter at the very peak of its strength. Fed and activated, okay. We never stop its activity, meaning we don't dry it, freeze it, or add it anywhere when it's weak, when it's not fed, okay. It's just like with people, you know. So we dehydrate or freeze it. Or you can cover it lightly like this, but not tightly, so it still gets air, because the more air gets in, the faster it will dry out. And actually, the drying process can take up to 2 days if it's warm. And the main thing isn't so much the temperature as the humidity level in the room or the house, right? The more humid the room, the longer it takes. It can take 5 to 7 days. If it's very dry, you'll get the result in 2 days. Next, you just separate these parchment sheets and scrape off from both of them. Just make sure to use good quality parchment, not the cheapest kind, not that craft paper, because it can happen that you won't be able to scrape it off. Use silicone-coated parchment that you trust, the kind that many people already use, the kind that professional pastry chefs actually bake on. Because, like I said, there's a risk that your starter will end up stuck to the paper, basically fused with it. So we've set it aside to dry. Godspeed. Moving on. Let me tell you right away, you won't get bread on the same day, because you need at least a day, sometimes two, for the dried starter to activate. All right. What exactly are you doing? First, you mix. Let's take this regular glass jar, for example. You mix. You can even do it without scales. The dry starter, right, 1:1. Here I have precisely 10 grams of water. And now we'll see how much is truly needed so that the water completely covers the starter. Aha, it turns out you need about 30 grams of water. And you just mix it like this until it reaches a paste-like consistency. Help it dissolve. And then we go back to the stable feeding ratio, 1:2:2. So now, indeed, got it. So now we'll mix this, weigh how much starter we have here. Or actually, I had 10 grams of starter and 30 grams of water, so that's 40 grams. It needs a little time to dissolve. So we leave it for a day at room temperature, and after a day we check it. It might happen that the conditions are great and the starter is super active, all alive. We use it. If you see there aren't many bubbles and it hasn't grown much. After we've prepared it, you can already see how active the starter is in about 6 or 7 hours. You can observe, you made it in the morning, checked it after lunch, and if it's risen, great, everything's fine. Any problems or questions that might come up, I'll write them out for you below this video. Well, not exactly strange, but a very strong sour yeast smell. Most likely, it's spoiled, right? That means maybe it's suffocated, was closed off, the starter was hungry, or it was too warm and it over-fermented. If you see any blue-green mold in the starter, that's also pretty much game over, and you'll need to start a new one. This separation of water from the flour can happen especially in the early stages, like on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th day. So keep an eye on it and let me say right away, don't be afraid, you can always ask me or my team for support. All right. We'll help you and guide you along this very interesting sourdough journey. So what's next? It's a new day and there are some changes in the starters. All right, let's see how each of them is doing. This is what we mixed together yesterday. Now this future starter looks like this one, which looked the same yesterday. So it's uniform, stretchy, and already has a stronger consistency. The process has started, it's working. Look at it, there you go. This is no longer just a mixture, this is already a very good glue. This is how our starter looked. Yesterday was its first feeding. Today, they already smell a bit different. Today, ours will eat for the 2nd time. Look, bubbles have already appeared here. They were there before, but there were only 2. Yeah, across the whole surface. Now there are more of them. Look at the consistency, it's just perfect. Just look. Oh, this starter is even getting whiter now. The smell is more intense. So everything is going well. Yes, and we have another starter, the one that was dehydrated. We rehydrated it, meaning we mixed it with water and fed it. And now bubbles have started to appear. You can see here a little bit, as if the water is separating. So the process of this interaction isn't finished yet. So bubbles are an indicator that they're breathing, alive, and they absolutely have to be there. I'm sure it's because of the temperature in my room. It's pretty chilly in here. You can tell by the ants running around. And that's why the activation process takes a bit longer than just 1 day. We talked about this before, that it can even take up to 2 days. So now I'll also take a little bit and feed it. Here we have the first feeding, here the second feeding, and here is the activation of the final feeding. I also wanted to show you the flour I use. So this is what the packaging looks like. Look, I ordered online. I'll send you the link. If Italian flour, here it is. But it's great because it's professional bakery flour, fortified, all-purpose, meaning it's good for our tartines, for ciabatta, for focaccia, for all kinds of baked goods. It's suitable for making classic baked goods with a medium fermentation time for the dough. It's already ready for us to work specifically with the sourdough. It's a basic flour that meets a lot of needs. It's perfect for bread like tartine and other professional uses. So its strength is 280 plus 20, protein is 13, gluten is 31, fiber is 3.1, and ash content is 0.55. This is simply luxurious flour, and if made from soft meat of the double zero type, that means it's super fine, really great. Here, so you can see what it looks like, you can store it in these kind of bags, which is great because it breathes. Or you can pour it into containers, whatever's convenient for you. While you check out this producer, I'll go feed my sourdough starters. We have 50 here. We'll take away 25. Don't feel bad about it, remember. We remove it and don't cry. Done. Minus 25, awesome. Now we add 50 of water. You add water and you can let the sides dry out a little. Yes. Yes, and the flour. Great. My colleague Vova Yaroslavsky, whenever he makes himself coffee at work or at home, he always insists that this is the way to do it, and I believe him. Now I do it too. Even when he's making himself coffee, he stirs the clockwise and says something out loud. For example, so that the day will be successful, joyful, so that I radiate kindness, so that I become better and more talented. And then he drinks the coffee, filling himself with what he just spoke into it. And it's the same with the sourdough, because we're going to eat this bread, and we'll be living with the sourdough in the same house for quite a long time. Therefore, be sure to talk to her and tell her to be strong, to give health to everyone who will taste her products. To give strength, inspiration, joy, goodness, love. Amen. Harvard. Yes. And again, at room temperature, remember. Next, here we have 125 grams. We remove some, leave about 25, for example, otherwise it will be too much. Go ahead. Oops, oh, it's already becoming super nice. Yes, minus 30, there we go. We took out 100, again left 25, and again added 50 water, 50 flour. Everyone will be fed. And this little one here, it's already starting to activate. I'll just try to find a slightly warmer spot in my place right now. So right now there's no point in discarding or adding more feed, because it hasn't eaten what we gave it, it hasn't processed it, it hasn't woken up yet. So it just needs a little warmth and love. Great. Well, is everyone fed? Let's make a little note here. There we go, just one. It entirely and completely covered it up. That's it. Good night, little one.